assistant fire chief entered to open the windows to allow the smoke to escape. The smoldering mass on the floor was put out with a hand pump. He did not see what remained of Mary's body until he was making his way out of the apartment. The fire chief was completely stunned by the scene that he found. All of the electrical outlets were working fine, though most were slightly melted. Sorry if you hear my ice maker. The switch that was nearest to where Mary had been was completely melted and not working. An electric clock in the room had stopped at 4:20, but when it was plugged in at Pansy's apartment, it worked fine. The facts of the case were quickly released to the papers. The corner where Mary's body was found was hot enough to destroy Mary's body and most of the chair, but the paint on the wall behind her was not cracked or scorched. The living room rug was burned only underneath where the chair had been. Soot and smoke blackened the upper walls and ceiling of the room, but there was no evidence of smoke near the floor or below table level. Light switches melted and buckled, but outlets a few feet lower on walls were intact and working. Candles on a windowsill near the hot corner had melted, but their wicks remained upright in the holders. A pile of newspapers on a water heater immediately behind the hot corner were not damaged. Bed sheets a few feet away were not burned, smoke damaged, or even dirty. All electricity to the kitchen was off. A wall-mounted gas heater was secured and off. Different theories began to spread about the cause of the fire. One of the more prominent was that Mary had been struck by lightning. Shortly after her death, police received an unsigned letter that was addressed to the chief of detectives, but spelled wrong. So Chief CHEIFN detectives DETECTIFFS, which said, "A ball of fire came through the open window and hit her. I seen it happen." Another theory was that her body must have been soaked in ether or alcohol. The police contacted the company that manufactured the chair to determine heavily soaked with greasy substances, ashes, shoe, and chair springs. By the way, sorry, my neighbors are like making noise above me. My stomach is making noises, so I don't know what this mic is picking up, but I'm just sorry if there's a ton of stuff in the background. Interestingly enough, J. Edgar Hoover was directly involved with the investigation into Mary's death. J.R. Reicher, chief of police, specifically requested that the FBI provide any information or theories into how a human body could be so destroyed and the fire contained to such a small was enough weight to like keep the fire going. The cigarette dropped her, so the theory is the cigarette dropped her lap. Her fat was basically the fuel that kept the fire burning. The floor was cement, and the chair was basically by itself in the corner, so there was nothing around her to like catch fire and burn. But there's people that disagree with the theory. So there's this anthropologist from the University of Pennsylvania who said that her skull should not have shrunk, it should have exploded. And the cremation of her body doesn't really make sense. That it should have required several thousand degrees of heat over the course of hours to happen. He basically said, I cannot conceive of such complete cremation without more burning and destruction in the apartment. But really, like, after the FBI released its report, that was kind of it. And then a portion of her ashes were buried next to her husband in Pennsylvania, and the rest are with her offspring. Her family told the St. Petersburg Times that they used to feel her presence basically up until they got rid of her old furniture, and they would say, that's grandma again, but don't worry, she's nice. Yeah, I don't know. This is, like, I have a lot of questions, but clearly, like, nothing, like, they just shut the door on it and were like, that's how she died, end of story. I'm surprised the family not like is okay with